skipping up and down the floor. My head is an animal, and once there was an animal.
Hey everybody, this is Pat Foster. A few months ago we got our hands on the pre-production YZ250F. Yamaha let us put 3 hours on it out at Glen Helen. Had a great time on it. Turns out the bike we rode a few months ago are the same exact specs as what we're riding now. But now we're getting to spend a little bit more time on the bike. We're here for a couple days. Really cool track, and this bike's a lot of fun.
She went down the forest slopes, the forest of talking trees. They used to sing about the birds and the bees.
So let's just cut right to the chase here. Our shootout's in a few weeks, and this thing's a contender. This bike is really good. You know, a lot of people bagged on the 2013 because it still had a carburetor, and you know, quite frankly, it was behind some of the other bikes. But frankly, that bike was really a fun bike to ride if you weren't racing. It handled well, the suspension was awesome, it had great low end. It was just lacking, it was lacking the fuel injection, so we had some misses once in a while in the carburation, and it went pretty flat in the mid-range and top. But with such good handling characteristics on last year's bike, you're a little bit nervous about Yamaha throwing everything out and starting with a brand new bike, and that's what they did. Luckily, they kept the great handling characteristics, they kept the awesome suspension, but they've cleaned up the motor. The motor is awesome. This thing may be the fastest bike in the class, and it's going to be really interesting to see when we put it up against some other bikes. It comes on really smooth on the low end. There are some places out here where it could probably use a tooth on the bottom, just give it a little bit more pull. But man, once this thing hit the mid-range, it pulls so hard. And then it keeps pulling into the top end. There's a ton of over rev. I mean, what a change in the motor this year. This thing is unbelievable. One of the other areas Yamaha focused some attention on this year was their shifting forks. This thing is silky smooth. The gearbox is really clean, especially if you're coming out of a turn. We've got some pretty steep hills here. You're pulling out of the corner. The bike's under a heavy load. It would be really easy for that bike to get notchy, the shifter to get a little tough. It's just silky smooth. The bike just falls into each gear. So with the motor being so good, it's hard to believe that Yamaha hadn't focused all of their attention there, because it is a huge improvement. But this is basically an all-new bike. And you look at how tight and compact, they've just worked so hard on centralizing the mass. Much like the 450, this has a rear-facing cylinder. The exhaust pipe has been brought in tight. I mean, all of the heavy pieces of the bike, the gas tank is down under the seat. Everything that carries much weight to the bike is right down in the center of the bike, which makes it handle really well. It doesn't get loose in the bumps. You know, similar to the 450, the front end feels a little bit light down the fast straightaways, but I think that we could tweak a few things with some setup and get it a little bit more planted. The bike corners really well. I think that one thing that what Brendan and I both noticed while we were riding is with the weight carried down in the center so much, you do have to be a little bit more aggressive in the corners. The bike lays over into the turns extremely well, but if you're lazy, you're not on it, it does have a tendency to want to stand up a little bit. You know, we've touched on it a little bit, but the centralized mass just makes this bike feel extremely light and nimble. Both Brendan and I noticed that. It's just really easy to change directions on. Coming into corners, it's easy to change lines, it feels light in the air. You know, the other thing that helps with that, aside from having adjustable bars, which we really didn't play with that too much today, the bike feels really roomy, much like the 450. This thing's got a really flat seat. The gas cap is hidden underneath the seat, so you've got a ton of room to slide up on the bike. Ergonomics are really comfortable. I'm a pretty big guy, Brendan's a little smaller, both of us really were comfortable with the bike, and didn't change much at all going back and forth on it today. Gosh, for the most part, this thing just handles really well at the corners well. I mean, Yamaha hit it out of the park with the changes they made since 2013. It feels like I've just barely scratched the surface on the changes of the bike. I mean, literally we sat in a classroom last night while Yamaha went over the changes for about an hour and a half. I mean, they're extensive. It's an all-new bike. But luckily, they kept the traits that we really liked about the 2013, but they added an awesome motor, great ergonomics, centralized the mass. This thing feels so light and nimble. It's going to be really interesting in our shootout in a couple weeks. This thing's going to do really well. You guys check it out. Thank you.